climate change is a relatively new area of focus on the African continent, primarily because when it started really as a get-together of the developed countries who combined. They were responsible for the bulk of the emissions. So the focus on climate change was initially on how to reduce the emissions, and it still is. And so because Africa did not contribute much to these emissions, it was then thought that this was really a developed country issue, until we started connecting what was happening in Africa with climate change, and hence the realization that although Africa did not cause or contribute much to climate change, Africa suffers the brunt of the consequences of climate change, and hence our need to get involved in the global negotiations and also factor climate change into what we are doing at the national level. So we mobilized ourselves and managed to get some resources from development partners, including the EU, which resources enabled us to, first of all, do baseline check on what it obtains on the ground in our various member states. We did conduct several roundtable discussions in about 15 of our 26 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa. And it is out of this that we're able to put together the issues that are important at the national level and what needed to be taken up into the global negotiations through what we call the African Group of Negotiators. So our prime objective in our climate change interventions is to support our countries to address the impacts of climate change, and at the same time building economic and social resilience for present and future generations.
Well, it comes down to the architecture of the climate financing arrangement. I don't want to seem to be creating divisions between adaptation and mitigation, but that's largely the way it's structured. And when we speak to mitigation, we're speaking about reducing emissions. We speak about adaptation, we're speaking about adapting to a changing climate regime. Much of the monies basically are going into mitigation. Now, as you would know, small island developing states' carbon footprint is minuscule, so they wouldn't have significant investments for mitigation. What we'd have significant investments for is adaptation. So since most of the monies are going into mitigation, you could understand why there is that skewed distribution of funds. Outside of that, most of the mitigation efforts require scale. And when we speak of scale, small islands don't have those scale to allow for economies of scale to be derived. So as an investor, you're going to go after where scale is present, such as in your Brazil, your India, your China, your Indonesia, your South Africa. So we keep being left back. And we think that if that's to be addressed, even under the Adaptation Fund and the Green Climate Fund, we would have to be thinking of some way of carving out a niche for small island states, because if not, then the people who need assistance the most are the people who are not going to be getting it.
Dans notre espace, on a quand même déjà généré quand même un certain nombre de bonnes pratiques que nous avons présentées hier. Par exemple, nous avons conduit une étude sur l'impact de l'élévation du niveau de la mer sur la salinisation des terres agricoles côtières. Et cette étude-là a permis en tout cas d'identifier des bonnes pratiques de lutte contre la salinisation, donc des pratiques de lutte du point de vue chimique, biologique et également physique. Et nous allons donc élaborer un document de capitalisation qui va être diffusé non seulement en Afrique de l'Ouest, mais à travers les différents programmes régionaux GCCA. Je peux donner l'exemple aussi de ce que nous avons fait en matière de recensement de bonnes pratiques sobres en carbone dans le secteur de l'agriculture, la foresterie et le changement d'utilisation des terres. Alors là, il s'agit de bonnes pratiques qui contribuent à l'adaptation au changement climatique, mais également qui contribuent à l'atténuation du changement climatique. Par exemple, nous avons quantifié la réduction de gaz à effet de serre, notamment les quantités de carbone qui sont séquestrées, mais nous avons également analysé comment ces bonnes pratiques contribuent à la génération de revenus des populations. Donc, c'est des bonnes pratiques aussi que nous voulons aussi diffuser à travers notre espace, mais à travers également les pays ACP.